Hey guys, I'm Nick from the 3-2 Pitch. This is where I normally will be recording from the same exact camera, same exact microphone, same exact backdrop. This is what we were calling a mock episode. We recorded about a week ago. This might not be airing till 2 weeks, 3 weeks, tomorrow. I don't know exactly when this is airing, but it is a mock video. It's our first one ever. Some things you'll notice a little shaky. We don't yet have an intro. We don't yet have an outro either. So you're going to see a little segment saying insert intro. We don't yet have here, outro, just so you get the little gist of it, and some editing. Like, I put photos over the video, but I learned midway. I was recording something else, and I realized I could put photos on the side, so I could put a photo right here or here in this area and one in this area, and just green screen myself. But we didn't have a green screen at the time, so I could just put photos here, here. So it's just all playing around. So this is our mock video. Again, I'm gonna say leave comments below, let us know, change anything. Next video hopefully coming out next week. And more stuff maybe later this week. Yeah. Enjoy the video. Thanks for watching.
I'm Drew.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome to
the 3-2 Pitch, where we will talk about baseball signings, trades, rumors, games, highlights, all of the above. Anything baseball related.
And today we have a really fresh topic for you. So here we go. Batter up.
Within this last weekend, both CC Sabathia and Bruce Bochy have announced retirement. Bruce Bochy managing the Giants to 3 World Series championships in 2010, 2012, and 2014. CC Sabathia coming up with the Indians in 2001, drafted as a 17-year-old, has many accomplished seasons in the big leagues.
So while these retirements don't come as a huge surprise to the baseball world, it is really a sad weekend for Major League Baseball. Let me start with Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy has been with the Giants since 2006, and since he came to San Francisco, he's completely changed the culture of the Giants. Before Bruce Bochy came along in San Francisco, they had managers like Dusty Baker and Roger Craig and Felipe Alou that were always just one game short, or maybe even one bullpen switch short, of taking the Giants to the promised land. Bruce Bochy brought in a different type of mentality to San Francisco. Number one, his ability to manage the bullpen is unlike anything that we've ever seen here in the Bay Area, especially in 2010, when you saw his bullpen management of Jeremy Affeldt, Santiago Casilla, Sergio Romo, and Brian Wilson. The magic and the magistry that he was able to accomplish in being able to change pitchers at just the right time in every single playoff game. From 2010 to 2014, the Giants gave up less earned runs out of their bullpen than any other team in the playoffs. Of course, it wasn't always about the offense, but then again, when he needed to bring up a pinch hitter or someone to be able to make an impact, take a look at 2014. Game 5 of the NLCS against the St. Louis Cardinals. And the Giants were down 3-2 going in the bottom of the 8th. Bumgarner had pitched a pretty good game that night, but it was looking like the Giants were going to be headed back to St. Louis for a possible Game 6. He calls Mike Morse out of the dugout, a guy who was coming off of an injury, had a great regular season, but didn't really have a great postseason. He only had 2 or 3 appearances. And of course, Morse comes out, and you guys know the rest is history. He hits a game-tying home run down the left field line, and then Ishikawa with the Bobby Thompson moment in the bottom of the ninth. But those were the moments that Bochy brought to the Giants. He always knew which button to press at the right moment. All through the Bay Area, he will be missed. However, there are the other people that feel like this is the right move. And they might feel like this is the right move because of Zarhan Farhan Zaidi new culture that he's going to be bringing into San Francisco. Of course, now with all of the analytics and the shifts and the different lineup cards that are presented by general managers, look at what happened last year with the Dodgers, Cody Bellinger being the NLCS MVP and then only having a number of at-bats in the World Series because of analytics. This is a new age of baseball, and many people feel that Bruce Bochy is no longer really a part of this new culture. He's 63 years old. He has more of an old school mentality, and maybe that is just obsolete as we move forward. Still, as a longtime Giants fan and Bruce Bochy fan, it will be a difficult season knowing that he's going to be gone. However, hopefully the Giants will be able to find somebody that fits their new culture and mindset. Thinking about CC Sabathia, a Vallejo native, someone that grew up here in the Bay Area and has given so much to the community, it's really important to understand that CC Sabathia has had one of the greatest careers for a pitcher, especially that resides from the Bay Area. He has been a workhorse for a number of years, bottom line. Innings pitched, ERA, strikeouts, and a mentality that a lot of pitchers, especially from this region, have not really had over the years. Sort of an old school mentality of a strike thrower. He's going to come at you, not afraid to mix it up. Later in his career was a little bit more controversial when talking about umpires, especially the Angel Hernandez comments that he made this year. They were really, really sort of risky, but you could tell that he was at the end of his career and didn't really care that much about those types of comments. But he's always had that type of mentality. So CC Sabathia, definitely someone that the Bay Area will miss pitching, and I'm sure some of the New York fans will probably be happy to see gone with some of the years he's had in the past. Again, Bruce Bochy and CC Sabathia, great memories, really legends of the game, and people that I hope could stay inside the game as we move forward.
Yeah, I remember watching those playoff games in 2014 with Bochy's call to Michael Morse and the historical Travis Ishikawa home run. Bochy as a manager with the Giants is a 979 win, 965 loss record. If he has 13 games under 500, he'll have a winning record as a Giant. He's only won one National League Manager of the Year, surprisingly, in 1996 with the San Diego Padres. CC Sabathia has a career 3.70 ERA, 246 wins, 153 losses. He's 14 strikeouts away from 3,000 in 3,470 innings pitched. However, he gets to start the season on a 5-game suspension for throwing out a batter in September of 2018. Pause. It's me, Nicholas. We recorded this the whole video Monday, February 18th. It's currently Tuesday, February 19th, and Manny Machado has signed a 10-year, $300 million deal with the San Diego Padres. Big shocker. You will see what I want to say about Machado and the Padres here in this next clip, but anything we say, remember, we recorded this a day before Machado signed. We had no clue his signing was coming today, this morning. And yeah, I just want to let you know that. Get right back to the video. Next up, we have Harper and Machado, who have both received $240 million or more offers from the San Diego Padres. Harper's market still involves the Nationals, Phillies, and Giants, while Machado still involves the Padres and Phillies. However, the White Sox and Yankees have remained very quietly in the race for them.
What is going on with the Major League Baseball's offseason? It is absolutely unbelievable to think that the two top free agents of the free agent class are still unsigned, and all teams have now reported to spring training. It's really unprecedented in my 35 years on this earth to see that these types of superstars are still unsigned. Let's start with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper, one of the best players in the world. Lately on MLB Network, top 15 ranked player in Major League Baseball. Obviously had a little bit of a down year last year, still had 34 home runs and 100 34 homers and 100 RBI. Those are pretty good stats with Washington in a down year where they ended up ultimately falling out of the division and wild card races. Bryce Harper is probably one of the top free agents that I've seen in my life since Barry Bonds, especially considering his age at 26. If you sign him to a 5-year contract, he's just going to be hitting his prime towards the end. Obviously, a lot different than what we've seen in the past with 10-year deals for Albert Pujols and for players that maybe haven't lived up to the back end of their contracts. Bryce Harper is still getting better, folks. He's still going to be able to become a better player at this stage of his career. He maybe needs a change of scenery. Washington seems to have gotten a little bit stale for him. The fans seem to be a little bit fed up with their lack of success in the postseason. And he hasn't really matched up with a manager that has worked for his particular type of playing style. I think the Giants, believe it or not, I'm not just saying this as a Giants fan, I think the Giants would be a great fit for Bryce Harper. He would be coming into a situation now where we just learned today that where Bruce Bochy is retiring, so he would have a say in who would become the next manager. Also, we have a vacant right field in San Francisco. It makes a lot of sense for them, even in what they call a rebuilding type of year, to have Bryce Harper come in, play right field for a young team with players that are still learning like Steven Duggar and Mac Williamson and Austin Slater, and be able to mentor them as they start to become serviceable players in the major leagues. Right now, unfortunately, they are not. Do I think the Nats are a good fit for Harper? Not really, to be honest. A, I think Bryce Harper needs a change of scenery. B, I think he's worn out his welcome there. And C, I think he would like a new experience and a new place to play. The best option for Bryce Harper is Philadelphia, and it's really not even close. Look no further than their short porch in right field. Philadelphia provides him a similar division, so he's going to know the players that he's been going against, especially the pitching staffs within the NL East. He's also going to be playing for a team that's on the rise with recent extensions we're going to talk about a little bit later, Aaron Nola. They've got a good young pitching staff with a great bullpen and some pretty good young players, including Rhys Hoskins. And, of course, you've got Franco and you've got Herrera. So you've got young players that have already started to immerse themselves as pretty good pillars. And then you bring in a guy like Harper. He's the kind of guy that can take them over the top. Nicholas won't like this, over the Mets, over the Nationals, and over the Braves, who are the favorite to win the division. Do I think he's going to go to Philadelphia? Probably. That's my early outlook here, and sources have said that Philadelphia is probably the most likely scenario. But don't forget about San Diego. Do I think San Diego is going to sign him? Absolutely not. When's the last time the Padres have done anything significant in the careers or of any time frame of the San Diego Padres history? It's not going to happen. But the Padres have offered $240 million. Could happen. But if I was going to give my early handicap on Bryce Harper, or I should say my late handicap since we're already into spring training, it would be Philadelphia. As far as Manny Machado goes, I still can't get the image out of my head of him striking out to end the World Series and falling to one knee. I'm not sure if that's the kind of person that I want to bring into my clubhouse, aside from the fact that he didn't run out a ground ball in the NLCS. He's had run-ins with different players and different incidents over the course of his career, and he hasn't always been seen as a hard-working, hustling type of player. Although the talent is there, obviously. Had a breakout season last year with the Dodgers after sort of a, getting to know you period in the first few, I would say, weeks to a month of his time in LA. He's a cornerstone player, obviously young, just like Harper. The Padres are the best fit here. Again, they have a need at third. They have a young Villanueva.
Pause, hold up. Christian Villanueva in late November was released on a deal where the Yomiuri Giants paid a fee for the Padres to release Villanueva. So he's now with the Yomiuri Giants of the Napoleon Baseball League. Drew, do more research.
Still a ways away. They've got the rest of their infield sort of set up with Hosmer at first and two young infielders, Rivera. there in San Diego. And then they've got a young outfield with Renfroe and Margot and other young players that have sort of stepped up and have made the Padres a team that could be on the rise. With the Giants falling down, most likely, into fifth in the NL West, and the Diamondbacks losing Goldschmidt and Pollock, we're probably looking at Machado to the Padres lifting them up into even possibly surpassing Colorado in the NL West if they're able to get him. Chicago has really cooled down. That rumor was hot for a while. It's really cooled down. And I'm not sure why. He has sort of connections in Chicago. He's got the contract offer on the table, but it just hasn't happened for whatever reason. And, Philadelphia's also been in the running for Machado at times. But really at this point, it's come down to what many people think to be a two-team race of San Diego and Chicago. Well, the question is, when will they sign? Again, we are coming up this weekend. We've got games. Nicholas and I are going to be talking about that really soon. We've got baseball coming up. So when will they sign? Scott Boras and Dan Lozano, they've got to get over their differences because it seems like the friction that they have has really played a role in how these contracts are not being signed. And you wonder, are they going to take short-term contracts just to be able to get signed so that they don't end up unsigned going into the beginning of the season? What if Bryce Harper and Manny Machado aren't signed by this weekend? What does that say for the rest of this year? It definitely will be really interesting.
I hate to say it, but Harper in Philadelphia, even though he really doesn't like it there, great fit for them with Rio Muto, Segura, Franco, Herrera, Hoskins, Nola, all great foundation. It would probably pass up my Mets, the Braves. Philadelphia got the six-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, 2015 MVP. Machado, on the other hand, I'd like to see what happens if he went to Chicago or San Diego. They'd become an instant contender. He's a two-time Gold Glover, four-time All-Star, been running in the top 10 MVP 3 years. Really like to see what happens if they'd actually be able to overthrow the Rockies, who played game 163 against the Dodgers. I mean, NL West come an even better division. Next up, we have some contract talks. If it's extensions with Nola and Severino, or a big signing by the Brewers with Moustakas, turned down a multi-year deal to stay with the Brewers, who's on a one-year deal with an option for 2020.
So while we still are waiting for Harper and Machado to finally sign up with their prospective teams, we did have some signings as of today and a few extensions. Let's start with the Moose, Mike Moustakas, who played a significant role in Milwaukee's run last year in the postseason. Did a great job over at third, platooning with Travis Shaw, who recently actually was quoted in saying that he would be happy to have Mike Moustakas back to go for another run at it. Because let's be honest, the Milwaukee Brewers were one game away from the World Series last year. I luckily had the great fortune, with all the money that I make as a teacher, to be able to travel to Milwaukee, and I was at game 2 of that series against the Dodgers, where Ryu was on the mound for the Dodgers, and Wade Miley was on the mound for the Brewers. And it was a great game. They had game 2. They were actually up. They took Miley out too soon, I thought. Craig Counsell got a little bit excited with his pitching changes and his analytics towards the end of the year, and the bullpen ended up imploding because of the fact that Josh Hader wasn't available in 3 innings in game 1. So the Brewers were really close. They went down to LA, they won a game, and like I said, got it to a game 7 and were super close. So this year, I know they were in Madison Bumgarner talks. A lot of people thought that they were going to be one of the teams to pick them up. Just because they didn't get him in the offseason doesn't mean that they can't get him in the trading deadline. So they're going to be big buyers this year. They're going to compete. They're going to be neck and neck with the Cubs. A lot of people think Cincinnati might compete. I'm not one of those people. I don't think they will be competing. Again, we'll be talking about that next week when we do our divisional and spring training previews. But the Brewers are really an up-and-coming team. They have the young bullpen. They've got Josh Hader, of course. Their starting rotation's a little bit thin, but Mike Moustakas is a big signing for them. He really is that type of cornerstone player that they need to plug into the lineup behind, Ryan Braun, who's aging, and some of their players that may have had better years than they were really anticipated in having. So we'll see how that goes for them. As far as the extensions, Aaron Nola with Philadelphia, huge re-signing for them. This was expected, of course. But the Phillies are a contender this year. And if they're able to get Bryce Harper, it puts them into the upper echelon of teams in the National League. They are leaning towards, being a successful franchise for years to come now. In the mid-2000s to late 2000s, of course, they won the World Series in 2008. Then they had their amazing season in 2009 that unfortunately was, lost in the end because of the New York Yankees. And then they ended up losing Cliff Lee in 2010, losing to my Giants in one of the most epic NLCSs you'll ever see. And then 2011 was pretty much the last year that they had in their run before they had to sort of shut it down, and when their players started to get older. That sucks. So the Philadelphia Phillies run is back. They are back. And if they are able to not only sign Bryce Harper and now they have Aaron Nola, they are on an upward trend. When you look at Luis Severino, you're talking about a Yankees team that is loaded. Year 2 of Giancarlo Stanton. Another year of Aaron Judge. Gary Sanchez coming off of a year where he had some struggles defensively, but now they've been able to bring him back into the fold. And they look like a team that really looks to compete with the Boston Red Sox. Unfortunately for them, right, they still have an aging rotation with CC Sabathia and Masahiro Tanaka. So they're going to have to get a little bit younger in their starting rotation. Severino is a step in the positive direction for them. Sonny Gray, losing him was definitely no loss at all because he never really started for the Yankees. He was uncomfortable from the very beginning after coming in from Oakland. So the Yankees are definitely going to be competing this year. And what you see now with a lot of these extensions is that teams are starting to realize that free agents are not signing. So if Bryce Harper and Manny Machado and a ton of the other high-level free agents, even Marwin Gonzalez hasn't signed yet.
Okay, pause again. Marwin Gonzalez, 2-year, $21 million deal with the Minnesota Twins. Man, this video is taking a while to edit. I'm going back and reviewing everything now, so this segment that's kind of going on right now is a little lackluster. I really don't know what clips to put in, so this is one of the more lazier. This video has taken a while for me to edit. Yeah, get back to Drew talking about some contracts.
One of the most solid outfielders left on the market. If he hasn't signed and he's sort of mid-level, the domino hasn't even fallen yet of Machado and Harper. These extensions are really important. With the way that contracts are worked out now and with agents looking for is long-term deals, being able to extend a player in a market-friendly deal that works for a team is super important. And I think the Phillies and the Yankees were really smart to be able to make these sort of under-the-radar type of moves as they move forward. So it really should be interesting to see if other teams start extending players. I want to quickly talk about Madison Bumgarner because Madison Bumgarner, at this point, he's a lame duck pitcher. And what that means, for those of you that may not understand that term, is that he is going into a contract year. The Giants have decided that they are probably not going to extend him as the Phillies and Yankees have done with Severino and Nola. So are the Giants looking at his value at this point and thinking about trading him at the deadline? Or are they going to extend him? If the San Francisco Giants sign Bryce Harper today, and it might happen while we're on the air, then I think I'm re-signing Madison Bumgarner. I'm extending him. But if they don't, now you're talking about a team that is going to be looking to sell at the trade deadline. Should be really interesting this year, and as we get closer to the trade deadline, Nicholas and I are definitely going to be talking about teams that are going to be selling and buying.
Signing. Have Jacob deGrom. One of the interesting situations, the press conference this last weekend, One of the reporters asked if he'd consider a inning restriction if he didn't get an extension, which he said, or his agent said, by spring, the opening day was his extension day deadline, and he didn't rule that out. So as a Mets fan, you want them to be aggressive and extend him, but then you're like wondering why exactly are they not more in big talks of extending the 2018 National League Cy Young Award winner. Great season. Next up, we have rule changes, and spring training is going to have a 20-second pitch clock, and it's going to be interesting because that's going to speed up many, many games, and they've had that in the minor leagues last year, I know for sure. I just don't know about the year before exactly. But they're also talking about a universal DH, which take a bunch of strategy out of the game in the National League at least, which is one of my favorite things. But then you have that injury hazard because I remember Tanaka rounding third got injured at the Yankees-Mets game. That's not fun when any player gets injured, even though it's one of your most hated teams. Also, something that I really despise of it, a minimum 3 batter. That's the stupidest rule I've ever heard. And can we please just like take that rule and chuck it out of here? Like, eject that rule out of all of baseball. Just throw it into the trash or something. I don't know. It's the worst idea ever to come to mind. And I'm going to say something about shifts, which I heard a concept of. Don't ban them completely. Make it where you split second base in half and have 2 defenders on each side. So you can play the shortstop kind of all the way to the left of second base if you're looking down, but you can't put them past. It still has a concept where you're going to get more outs than you were if you played them normally.
So we've reached the segment of our show where I get to talk about rule changes. Whoop-de-doo. Rule changes, rule changes, rule changes. That seems to be the new theme of Major League Baseball. Why is it that all we are talking about is rule changes when there's nothing wrong with the game? There's never been anything wrong with the game. It's always been people that have had something against the game, whether it be old school or new school mentality. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 main rule changes that are being proposed, and I'm going to tell you why I think all of these rule changes are going to be a huge mistake for Major League Baseball. Number one, when you think about the pitch clock. The pitch clock idea is insane, and here's why. We've never had a problem in Major League Baseball because of how long it takes for a pitcher to throw the ball to home plate. The main issue that we've had over the years have been when we think about some of the hitters that have taken so much time up at the plate. So let's think about a guy like Nomar Garciaparra. For the younger demographic, maybe you don't even know who Nomar Garciaparra was, but Nomar, over the years, he had his little... And that's pretty much what it looked like every single pitch. He had his superstitious routine that would take up so much time when it came to the time of a game and how long it would go. All right. Then you think about a guy like Sammy Sosa. Again, the younger demographic may not know. He had all sorts of little different idiosyncrasies that he would do throughout a game that would take away from the clock or the pace of play. Then you had a guy like Barry Bonds, one of my all-time favorites. I know he's been in the news lately, again, not in the Hall of Fame. That's going to be one of our topics coming up here soon. We're going to talk more about the Hall of Fame. And Barry Bonds never left the batter's box. He always stayed in the batter's box. As you can see in some of these clips here, doesn't leave the batter's box during an at-bat. Would just stay in there. When you see him not leaving the batter's box, that was fine. A lot of games that you saw the Giants participating in were under 3 hours. Here's the last thing that has led to the time of a baseball game being unbelievably long, and that is the Yankees and the Red Sox. That one particular matchup has taken forever, and that has become the norm for baseball, that we allow some of these games, because they're on national television, ESPN or Fox, or wherever you find that game, they tend to go longer because you've got a ton of pitching changes. And don't tell me that the 3-batter rule is going to work, because that leads me to that next one. That is not going to make a difference, because I'll tell you right now, if Major League Baseball adopts a rule where they allow or make teams take a pitcher out after a minimum of 3 hitters, what they're going to do is that every 3 hitters, you're going to see a new pitcher. So in the past, where maybe you'd see a Javi Lopez, a lefty specialist, come in for the Giants, and you'd see him come in, and then you'd see another pitcher come in and pitch for an inning and a third or an inning and 2/3. But now you're going to see every inning a new pitcher, okay? And even if you don't have a new pitcher every inning, you're going to see every 3 batters, you're going to see a new pitcher from the 5th inning till the end of the game. Instead of what we have now, which I think is actually helped with pace of play, which is that you see pitchers coming in the 5th inning and they take 2 innings, like a Josh Hader, or 2 or 3 innings. So I don't think the 3 minimum batter rule is going to help at all. If anything, it's going to me, make the game even longer, which is, to me, one of the stupidest things about all these rule changes is that if you look at the pace of play actually increased last year. And these were after they put on their little tiny pitching clock or their inning clock in between innings. It hasn't made a difference. And if it does make a difference, it's minuscule. It's a matter of seconds to minutes. It doesn't make any sense in the world. So they need to take a long, hard look at what they're doing and realize that it's not making a difference. To the last rule that I think would really change the game would be the DH. The DH being universal in the American and National Leagues. There's one thing that's left that is pure about Major League Baseball, and it's that the National League still has to use a pinch hitter for a pitcher, especially in the crucial time of the game, top of the 5th inning, game's on the line, bases loaded, your pitcher's coming up. What are you going to do? And that is, if we take that away from the game, I'm telling you here right now on the 3-2 pitch, that the game will change forever. The other rule changes, to me, don't change the game. This rule change will change the game for the worse. It will become arena baseball. It will no longer be interesting. It will be like watching the NBA All-Star game. It will be 195 to 192. It will no longer be about strategy. Managers will no longer be important. They've already been phased out from analytics. They've already been phased out because of the innovative GMs that like to throw down the lineup cards to their managers. But I'm telling you right now, if the DH becomes universal, and I know it's not going to happen this year, but if it happens in the near future, this game will change forever. It will no longer be America's pastime. It will become arena baseball. Arena baseball. Is that where we want our league to go? I don't think so.
Adding on to the National League DH idea, how often do you see players come off the bench in the American League? I don't recall very many situations where the bench empties out, like the World Series game when Max Muncy hit a home run. You had pitchers. That just doesn't happen, and that's a lot more strategy, and it's going to become arena ball. It's super sad the direction that baseball would go. I mean, yeah, more runs, more hits, more fun for a fan that needs to get into baseball, which it really needs. I mean, young fans are not interested in the game. It's more older generation, but it's all for another video. I think the National League needs to keep its strategy where it's at. And today, we're also going to include our first team outlook with the A's and Giants, 2 hometown teams of where we currently are. Very interesting because both teams have kind of gone their separate ways. With the A's adding players like Jurickson Profar, and the Giants are just adding kind of minor league contract players. Pat Venditti, Gerardo Parra, Craig Gentry. I mean, these 2 teams have kind of crisscrossed from where they've been the last couple years.
So now we finally get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is actually exploring the teams. And for the first time in our show, we're going to start looking at previewing some of the teams as we go into our baseball season, which is really starting this weekend on Saturday. Giants and Angels and spring training at 12:10 on KMBR 680, the sports leader. My favorite time of the year when I get to actually listen to some baseball. And it's going to be refreshing because one of the things that we've really been talking about, and as we've done in this show today, is we've talked a lot about free agency. We've also talked a lot about rule changes. There's a lot going on in Major League Baseball that's not necessarily focused on the actual teams. So why not start with a wonderful preview of our beloved Bay Area teams, the San Francisco Giants, my San Francisco Giants, and the Oakland Athletics, the up-and-coming youngsters on the East Bay. I'm going to start with them and talk about a little bit of a recap of what they did last year. They made it to the wild card game, and they ended up losing to the New York Yankees in a game where they actually had their starter, Liam Hendricks, start the game. And obviously, everyone knows that didn't quite pan out the way they wanted it to. But man, do they have a wonderful young team. They have an amazing looking infield with Matt Olson at first and a young Jurickson Profar who was just signed over the offseason. They've got Marcus Semien at short and the incredible.
Okay, pause again. Drew messed up yet again. Every 6 seconds, you can't go without messing something up. Jurickson Profar acquired in a 3-team trade with the A's, Rangers, and Rays. Jurickson Profar, Texas to Oakland, Emilio Pagan, competitive balance round A, Rolly Lacey heading to the Rays, and then a bunch of prospects are headed to Texas in that deal. And along with $750,000 worth of international allotments is in the trade heading to the Texas Rangers. Drew, can you stay up a little more to date with these acquisitions?
Matt Chapman, just an absolute MVP in the making, and maybe even more impressive than a Josh Donaldson because of his defense. One of the best defensive third basemen in the game today. I would say maybe only second to Nolan Arenado in Colorado, the way he's able to pick it over at third and throw him over to first base. Just an incredible young player. They also have Chris Crush Davis, who's going to be their DH. And, we've been talking about DH and how it sort of creates that arena baseball. But still, Chris Davis had an incredible year last year, crushing the ball to all fields, just absolutely killing the Texas Rangers in just about every game they played against them and leading the A's to that sort of unexpected wild card berth. If you look at their starting pitching, the first person that comes to my mind is Sean Manaea. And as you can see here in the video, Sean Manaea, early in the season last year, was able to no-hit the Boston Red Sox. And this is when the Boston Red Sox were absolutely just hot. They were so hot at the beginning of the season. They were basically, at that point almost undefeated. And he shut down a very powerful offense and no-hit them in Oakland at the Oakland Coliseum. Just an incredible performance by a young pitcher and a team that has a lot of potential. They have a really nice bullpen also. They've got, of course, Blake Trinan to close it out. And they have Mike Fiers, who came over last year midseason, who was re-signed. He's a wonderful addition to the pitching staff. So the Oakland A's are really trending upwards, although they're going to have to deal with the Houston Astros. The Astros are a wonderful young team with loads of talent, probably 5 of the top players in the major leagues, including Carlos Correa. And when you take a look at Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman, 3 of the top players in the league, along with George Springer, who doesn't even really get mentioned, and their wonderful pitching and offense. So it's going to be tough for the A's to get back to the playoffs, but they are on the upward trend. As I segue to my team, the San Francisco Giants, I first have to say this is not going to be a pretty year for the Giants. It's not going to be a good season. One of the problems that the Giants have right now is that they're in that uncharted territory that no team really wants to be in, which is where you're sort of in between the big contracts that you have and the younger players that aren't really coming up. You think about their farm system, and they do have Steven Duggar, who they are planning on giving a shot this year in center field. But when you think about the rest of their roster, a lot of big contracts that they can't quite get rid of yet. You start with Johnny Cueto. Johnny Cueto opted in last year, ended up going for Tommy John surgery, and is not going to be coming back until at least August in the latest report. When you look at Jeff Samardzija, Madison Bumgarner, that's a lot of money. Mark Melancon, a huge amount of money, although that money will be coming off at some point. Madison Bumgarner, they're going to have to think about if they are looking at being a buyer or a seller this year at the trade deadline. Most likely they're going to be selling. And if they're selling, Madison Bumgarner might be a wonderful trade chip for them as we go through the season. So that's definitely something to look at. When we look at the starting lineup, let's start with Brandon Belt. A huge disappointment. Brandon Belt still has not had that breakout season yet. 25 to 30 homers, 100 RBIs. And if it hasn't happened by now, a lot of pundits think that it may never happen, or at least it may never happen at Oracle Park, where you're talking about that 421 sort of pink elephant that really Brandon Belt has not been able to recover from. He hits a lot of triples, he hits a lot of balls in the gap, but he just doesn't produce enough to be a first baseman on a National League West club. When we move over to second base, you got Joe Panik. Joe Panik had a wonderful start to his career, but since then has been pretty much disappointing. Brandon Crawford, he's probably one of your cornerstones, but you've got Evan Longoria, still 3 years left on his contract. A lot of dead money over there, 40 million plus that the Giants sort of have hanging over their heads. And then you have Buster Posey. Buster Posey might be shifting to the infield at some point. They do have Joey Bart, who is their second overall draft pick last year, that has looked good in winter ball and has looked good in the Arizona Fall League, and they're going to be checking to see how he progresses this year. You might see Joey Bart this year at some point. Moving on to the outfield, as I mentioned, Steven Duggar, a young player that showed some potential last year, but ended up getting hurt and really didn't get a chance to play as much as the Giants organization would have liked. Left field has been a disaster. No, there's no way around it. When you look at Mac Williamson, Jarrett Parker, who's no longer there anymore, and Austin Slater, to me, they all look like 4A players. And if you don't know what a 4A player is, young kids, a 4A player means that you're sort of in between the big leagues and AAA. And that's not a recipe for success in the big leagues. Right field, again, McCutchen is gone. What are they going to do in right field? Bryce Harper, still available? Is it likely? No. But if they're able to get Bryce Harper, that would be a huge upgrade, obviously, for them. If not, you might see a platoon with Austin Slater. You might see some of their other young talent that they have. Chris Shaw is someone that the Giants think could be something. He's shown some ability. He hit a big home run last year in a few of their games, but really didn't show the type of potential that he has. So not quite yet. And again, are these guys 4A players or are they studs? The Giants still aren't quite sure, and that's a really dangerous place to be in. So the Giants are in a place right now where the best that they can do, and especially now, and as we learned this morning in Bruce Bochy's last year, is to try to just tread water, see if they can compete, hope that Jeff Samardzija comes back. They do have a young Derek Rodriguez. They do have Andrew Suarez. But again, not expecting huge things out of the Giants this year in a division where Colorado is going to be tough. The Dodgers are obviously the Dodgers. Arizona might come back a little bit because of the loss of Paul Goldschmidt and A.J. Pollock. But for the most part, the Giants might end up in 4th or 5th place this year. As far as the A's go, I'm looking at a 2nd or possibly competing for the division title. That's my preview for the A's and Giants this year. We're looking forward to hearing more about what you guys think. So please comment and let us know how you think our Bay Area teams are going to do this year.
I completely agree. The A's and Giants, be interesting to see what they do at the deadline. The A's probably could use some more pitching, so that would really take them to the next level. I mean, their rotation's not the strongest thing in the world. Whereas the Giants, they have a bunch of veteran players, old, big contracts. Anything you can get for them. If you have to relieve some of the money off a contract, might as well do it. I mean, just get rid of them. Start young, tear it down. I would be the best option. If you end up trying to get Harper, getting him, and try to keep them, make the small moves that really matter. Just like Drew Pomeranz, that was a Derek, in my eyes, that's a Derek Holland signing. Is take a shot in the dark, turns out like Derek Holland, a big surprise, he's good, great. If not, then, I mean, it's whatever, you didn't pay him very much. Next up, as a Mets perspective, quote that came out this last weekend. Robinson Cano says he feels like he's 25, and as a Mets fan, I am super excited. Seattle, terrible place for him to play, in both of our opinions. And he did that to himself. He wanted the money. Now he's in New York. He feels good again. I'm excited for him to put up some numbers.
Let's talk about Robinson Cano, Mr. 25 years old again. It was really funny to see that quote because Robinson Cano, I'm talking to you, sir. It didn't have to be this way. It really didn't. You had everything that you could have wanted. You were living like a king in New York. You had come off the World Series championship in 2009. You had helped the Yankees to continue to become, the flourishing franchise that they've always been. And then your free agency came up. And instead of thinking about, what was the best situation for you, of course, you did what so many other players have done over the courses of their careers, and you went for the money. And let's be honest. The difference in what the Yankees were offering and what the Mariners ultimately gave you was minuscule. It wouldn't have made a difference in the world. And let's sort of think about all of the sort of drops that have fallen since the move that you made to go to Seattle. Number one, you didn't make the playoffs one time. Not once. You only came close once or twice, and that was to a second wild card. So you really tainted your career by playing in a place like Seattle where you weren't able to put up the numbers that you put up in New York. Plain and simple. Seattle is a tough place to hit. It always has been. It always will be. It's like San Francisco. The air gets really heavy at night because of the marine layer, and the dimensions are not hitter friendly. And the last thing, it's Seattle. Seattle, the Seattle Mariners are probably one of the most snake-bit franchises in sports history. They are one of the only teams, you want to talk about some Drew trivia right here, one of the only teams not to make it to the World Series in their history. The Seattle Mariners have never made it to a World Series. They've been to the ALCS, but when they went to the ALCS, they were a team that won 112 games and were an amazing team, and they lost to the Yankees, of course. Let's fast forward to today. Robinson Cano is back with the New York Mets. Good for you. You finally made a move. Well, there was a trade made, but there was a trade made that you probably approved of. And you got to go to New York with your pal, Edwin Diaz. So not only do the New York Mets have a closer, finally, they did get Juris Familia back, so they have their setup man. They've got Edwin Diaz. They've got the pitching. They've got some offense. And I don't see why the Mets can't compete this year. Do I think they're going to win a division? Probably not. Do they have a chance? Absolutely. Do they have a chance for a wild card spot? Absolutely. Because when you think about successful teams, it always comes down to starting pitching. And you know that because of Syndergaard and DeGrom, or DeGrom and Syndergaard, I should say, just having those two horses at the top of your rotation, look at the Giants. Look what the Giants did for 3 World Series in 5 years because of their starting pitching and because of their bullpen. So the bullpen's going to have to step up. But Edwin Diaz coming off of a historic season last year should really help. And it's great news for Mets fans because the one thing that you can't measure about a baseball player is the comfort level that player has. And Robinson Cano is going back to New York where he feels comfortable. He played in New York. He grew up in New York, in the organization with the New York Yankees. He's going to have less pressure on him as a Met because historically the Mets are just sort of the second team in New York. Nicholas, I know you don't like that, but it's true. They're always sort of going to be the little brother to the Yankees. And that's good. That's going to be great for Robinson Cano because he's going to be able to play with a little bit less pressure than maybe you get as a Yankee. He's going to be able to get that swing back, hopefully. He's got a short porch in right field. He's going to be back in his comfort zone. So we'll see what happens, but it's definitely something to think about as this year goes on. A very interesting move, a sort of an underrated trade that happened over the course of the year, and I think it's really going to pay dividends for the Mets.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. And give us any feedback in the comment section below, as well as ask any questions. You may be featured in the next video.
It was great having you guys with us today. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. Can't wait to talk more about up and coming topics this year. Like Nicholas said, make sure that you join us and like us and comment, because we can answer your questions so you can be part of the show.
Look forward to seeing you next time
On the 3-2 pitch.